Ralph Fiennes stars in and directs Coriolanus, a film of Shakespeare's last major tragedy. The film was his directorial debut. It's a great film, and he won some awards, well-deserved. Vanessa Redgrave plays Volumnia, the mother of Coriolanus, a soldier. Not just any soldier, but a super soldier. He destroys an enemy city and gains thanks from his government as well as a new name, Coriolanus, named after the city he destroyed, Coriolanus. Now, this makes his mother very proud. As a war hero, he's expected to stand for consul, despite the fact that he's not a politician. He's the antithesis of a politician. In fact, he has a major problem. He has contempt for the people, the plebeians, many of whom were freed slaves. Now, Coriolanus himself is a patrician, a member of the aristocracy. Now, with such a hard-headed protagonist, it's difficult to avoid playing armchair quarterback, and the supporting characters are always giving him advice. They tell him, "You can't talk to people that way. You have to go back and mend it." Now, maybe they expected him to be something he's not and to behave in a way that was not natural for him. So the easy answer for his downfall is that he was ill-equipped for politics. But that wasn't why the people sentenced him to death, which does happen in the story. So let's look at this film of Coriolanus, the play by William Shakespeare. The film opens with Coriolanus putting down a riot during a famine. The people have no food, and Coriolanus goes out there with riot police and brutally suppresses the plebeian uprising. So the people know him as their enemy, even though they're all Romans, but not all of them are patrician, as Coriolanus reminds them. The confrontation is filmed by news cameras and broadcast in the enemy country of Volscia, which inspires an attack at the border by Tullus Aufidius, played here by Gerard Butler in one of his best performances. Now, unlike Coriolanus, Aufidius has a strong sense of self, a natural politician. Aufidius is the man who has it all together, and Caius Martius Coriolanus, despite being on the winning side, won't acknowledge that every member of the body politic is important. And soon after winning the Battle of Coriolanus, he becomes expendable. And it happens quickly. He stands for consul, which in ancient Rome was a leadership position decided by the Senate. Only patricians could be consul, but the plebeians had to approve it. The plebeians had their own representatives, the tribunes, who themselves were plebeians who had risen through the ranks. They were called the people's tribunes. Coriolanus goes to the town square to rally the people for their support. Senator Menenius and the people's tribunes accompany him. Very astutely, Menenius tells him to show the people the wounds he received in Coriolanus, but he doesn't want to expose his wounds in public and tells them he will show the wounds in private at a later time. Now, some of the people are skeptical because they already know he fought those battles to please his mother and not because he loves the people. He hates the people. He told them so. For a brief moment, he does win their confidence, but as soon as he leaves the scene with Menenius, the people's tribunes take over the town square and rally the people against Coriolanus. Remember what he did to you during the famine? What do you think he'll do when he has the power to crush? He doesn't love you. He was mocking you. And then the people wake up. Was this mockery? Those wounds he suffered in battle, did you see them? I never saw them. Nobody saw them. Well, the decision is not confirmed. We may deny him yet. And they do. They gather outside the Senate building. Coriolanus goes out there and spews all the hate that he has and says, "I'm ready to die right here, fighting you people." Now the plebeians sentence him to death. A riot ensues, after which Senator Menenius tells Coriolanus, "You've been too harsh, too harsh. You need to go back and seek forgiveness." But this goes awry. The two sides are brought together in a TV studio, but it's a setup. The people's tribunes don't want him in power. And he lacks the discernment even to comprehend what they're doing, let alone turn the tide with speechifying and a show of humility, which is what the people demand. Now, the people's tribunes, they know he can't do any of that. What's mystifying is that Menenius and Coriolanus' mother, Volumnia, don't realize that about him. Now, eventually, Volumnia does wake up, but right after the banishment, she defends her son. She goes to the Senate building with her daughter-in-law, Virgilia, and they confront the people's tribunes on the steps of the building. It's a great scene. Volumnia says, "You should meet my son in a dark alley." Now, that's the modern translation. Shakespeare's words are, "You should meet my son in Arabia," a sword in his hand, outside the legal jurisdiction, so to speak. And Virgilia grabs the other tribune and says, "You should meet my husband in Arabia as well, so he could make an end of your posterity." Great dialogue. It's Shakespeare, but also shows us how politically astute these two characters are. Banished from Rome, Coriolanus calls himself a lonely dragon who will find a life elsewhere. So he sees himself as a dragon, fire-breathing, destructive. He knows he has a talent for burning stuff down. And where does he go next? To the land of his enemy, Aufidius, who's been watching these events on the news. Coriolanus says, "If you let me serve you, I'll rain hellfire down on Rome for my vengeance and your gain." And he wastes no time raining hellfire. Soon, all of Rome is burning, on the verge of collapse. As it turns out, the soldiers love Coriolanus, to the surprise of Aufidius, who observes that Coriolanus has become more proud with his recent victories, and because of him, the light of Aufidius has dimmed. Now, Rome sends an envoy to seek terms of peace, but the envoy is sent back to Rome and tells the Senate Coriolanus refused to answer to the name Coriolanus or even Martius. He seemed like a kind of nothing, intent on earning a new name for himself with the destruction of Rome. So this tells us a lot. Coriolanus could have made a graceful exit here. When he traveled to Volscia, nobody recognized him at first, so he could have begun a new life, but he began a campaign of revenge against his home country. It seems he lost his identity when he was banished from Rome. The citizens said it best. The people are the city. You're not the city. The people are the city. Now, Coriolanus refused to acknowledge their newfound political power. When they dared to complain about the famine and question the governance, Coriolanus refused to see their side of it, although who wouldn't complain if they had no food? Now the tables are turned. He denied the people their new identity, so he finds himself without an identity and without a name. But he's forging a new identity for himself. We see this when Rome sends another envoy, Senator Menenius, who barely gets a few words out when Coriolanus says, "I'm not the person you knew. Go away." Menenius tells one of the generals, he's become a dragon. He's grown wings and doesn't creep on the ground like he used to. So Coriolanus has changed. He's transforming himself into Rome's destruction. He wants to destroy everything she's become. Now, at this point, Menenius takes his own life, the noble death that was customary in ancient Rome. But can we also understand what his death means for our times? Now, Rome's demands had become more than Menenius could handle, it seems. Rome had outgrown him, as it had outgrown Coriolanus. Rome sends a third delegation, consisting of Coriolanus's mother, wife, and son. They get on their knees. They shame him, call him a traitor. Would he murder his own kin? Now, they finally get through to him. Coriolanus agrees to stop the campaign against Rome, but he realizes he will have to die for it because he's now a traitor in two countries, Rome and Volscia. In Rome, Coriolanus signs the peace treaty, and Rome hails Volumnia as its patroness. She gives a salute during the ceremony and finds her new identity, patroness of Rome. She no longer has to live vicariously through the achievements of her son because this is the new Rome. Now, although she gave birth to her son, by making war on Rome, gave birth to a new identity for his mom. The film even gives us birth imagery. See this right here? Who's given birth to whom? When Coriolanus returns to Volscia, he's met with anger. He makes a perfunctory attempt to get back in their good graces, but just like the time he tried to win over the people of Rome, he ends up insulting them instead. Aufidius orders his death, and the soldiers oblige. The film gives us feminized imagery for Coriolanus in death. As Aufidius delivers the killing blow, he embraces Coriolanus like a woman. So the film is telling us that the changes in Rome aren't just confined to Rome. The entire world is changing. Coriolanus began the film as a man's man, but there's no place for that type of man in this changing world. Vanessa Redgrave steals this movie, just like her character, who emerges at the end of the film to upend our expectations about the new Rome and to steal the glory that she had prepared for her son. There's been a lot of scholarly commentary about Volumnia's role in her son's death. When she goes to Volscia to confront him, she's already decided to sacrifice him to save Rome because there was only ever one way that confrontation was going to end. Coriolanus would come to heel. Volumnia takes a very different tone with him there than when he stood for consul in Rome. Earlier in the play, she had spoken to him gently, and even given him the words to say to the plebeians, tell them, you're not just a soldier, you're their soldier. But he doesn't use her words until the end of the film, after signing the peace treaty, when he returns to the Volscians and says, I have returned. I am your soldier, he tells them, but it's too late. And he's talking to the wrong crew. He's not a Volsci. His mother taught him that. Vanessa Redgrave is spellbinding in the role. She has complete command of the screen and the audience. Ralph Fiennes is an accomplished storyteller. He plays Coriolanus as a man with a strong arm, but no sense of self. When he's not on the battlefield, he doesn't know who he is. In Volskia, he tried to build a new identity, but ended up with the old identity, the one who earned a name for himself by destroying a city. But this time he was destroying his own city, and therefore destroying himself because he saw himself as Rome. Not the new Rome, but the old Rome, which was already passing away. As a viewer watching this film, I kept thinking, every word out of his mouth is an insult. What does he think is going to happen? Tragic results, that's what. Although his enemies might say his behavior was just so odious he got what he deserved. Now, if you watch the film, you may be surprised what side of that line you come down on. The movie is set in modern times, so instead of sword fights, there's a lot of automatic weapons fire in the first half hour of the film. Puts the plot in motion, but not the best half hour of the movie. The rest of the film is well worth the watch. One of the best adaptations of Shakespeare ever on film. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe.